AITA for giving my son's girlfriend a list of requirements if they're going to receive financial support from me after I was given a list of requirements to see their baby. I'm 49F and I have a son 21M and his girlfriend 21F. His girlfriend is pregnant and because they are in a rough patch, both of them also dropped out of school. I've been helping them out with money. For the most part I like his girlfriend well enough, but she's been a bit overbearing during this pregnancy. Not that I really blame her. Today they came over and his girlfriend decided to give a list of do's and don'ts to my husband and I if we wanted to have contact with their child. The list was mostly reasonable: have vaccines, don't swear around the baby, handle baby with care, don't show up unannounced, no sexism/racism and any sort of ism around the kid, etc. Some of them were a bit overbearing: when the baby is older no tickling or sweets, no cartoons, no baby talk, etc. Took issues with this for two reasons. 1. It seems insulting and condescending. Some of the items on the list are things we would never do, like the racism and sexism one struck me as really odd. We're also not anti-vaxxers. It feels like she was pretty much assuming the worst of us. Of course we wouldn't swear like a sailor around a child. And we always call before we visit. They show up unannounced more than us. 2. Some of the items on the list are extreme. I understand that these are her rules and how she plans to raise the baby, but the idea that I would lose access to my grandchild because I baked cookies with them is extreme and I don't want to walk on eggshells or go through the hurt of losing my grandchild. Especially since I feel like it's the grandparent's job to spoil the child. Within reason of course. To clarify, I understand how these requirements could be necessary. If we weren't suited to be around children I would understand. So in response I said fine, but now here's a list of requirements to receive financial support. In the past we've always trusted them and given them a monthly allowance. As long as we didn't think they were deceiving us or blowing money or asking for even more, we let them do what they will with the money. So I added the stipulations like wanting to see their budget to ensure they didn't 1. Eat out, 2. Buy unnecessary clothing, 3. Didn't go to hair salons instead of barbers, 4. Had to spend a certain amount on the baby, 5. Didn't buy hobby related stuff, etc. And finally, financial support would be lost if we were to be denied access to the baby. There were more stipulations but I'm sure you get the point. I made this list and gave it to both of them in exchange for the list of the baby requirements. Both my son and his girlfriend were upset with this. I said that previously I had trusted them, but since you didn't trust us we wouldn't trust them. I also told them how disrespectful I thought they were for giving me a list when they rely on my husband and I for support. His girlfriend said I wouldn't be able to see the baby. I told them they could leave. My husband and I are both conflicted over this and I'm wondering if I overreacted. AITA edit. To all of you who are sending me messages hoping I die and saying you're happy I'll never see my grandchild, or calling my Dillo SLT for having an accidental pregnancy, why don't you say those things in the comments instead of hiding in my inbox? Edit 2. I thought I would add a mini update. It looks like the very top reply is NTA but there is a great deal of ESH and ERTAs. I can acknowledge that a discussion would have been a better approach. However, at the time I felt like I had just been slapped in the face, which is why I reacted the way I did. I have had some time to reflect, but right now I am still more upset that in response to conflict, my Dylan son both reacted by saying I will never see their child. I can possibly forgive them for the list as being overly cautious parents, but I'm not going to tolerate them threatening no contact over any conflict or using it as a control method. It would be too hurtful for myself. Some of you have accused my list as being petty, which maybe it was, but truly I was being defensive more than anything. I will not leave myself open to emotional manipulation, and I plan on making that very clear to my Dill. I do plan on talking to my son and Dill and going from there. I'm just going to wait though, as I want to be in a clear frame of mind and right now I am still very hurt and angry at them. Hopefully in a day or two we will be in a position where we can all apologize to each other and move on. Thank you for the advice. Info: did you try to discuss the boundaries you found unnecessary/ridiculous first, or was your first response to slap them with these new financial stipulations? Info. First off, boundaries are good, and the list is a clear way to set them. Everyone calling it extreme or immature I think are offended on your behalf. Sure, it wasn't very tactful of them, but I want to know, how did the conversation go at the time that you received the list? Are they rude? Did you happen to ask why they felt they needed a list? Did you ask about your complaints listed here? Are you sure there's nothing you could have done to prompt it? Are you sure it's not just a general list for everyone? Are you sure you're being targeted specifically about the isms? Perhaps there was a misunderstanding. Perhaps she's being the usual crazy first-time parent. I think you should all talk it out. Ask that no contact is taken off the table, of course, unless something heinous happens. Think your rebuttal list is reasonable, but maybe doing it as a rebuttal wasn't very tactful either. Your money, your rules, their baby, their rules. While either way you deserve to know what's happening with your money, what's important here is that you ask them questions, preferably in a calm, supportive environment. Hear them out. I think it's a misunderstanding. Info. How do you feel about your son's involvement with this list? Jill didn't come up with it on her own, but your post implies she did. Is he off the hook since you think it's her rules and how she plans to raise the baby? I was equally disappointed in my son, but I realize it doesn't really come off that way in the post, and I wasn't fair in how I wrote it because of that. She did most of the talking, but I know my son was either involved or didn't stand up to her. Info. Is it possible that GF's parents are much less trustworthy than you? So a list was drawn up that applies to both sets of grandparents. To be fair, my son's GF has very little contact with her parents from what I can tell. So I don't think this was a general list for both of us, but I suppose it's possible. AITA for not forgiving my wife when she wanted me to pay for a nursery room with my son's VAR device money. I am 37, been with my wife for 2 years, and I have a 9-year-old son from my previous marriage with a congenital heart disease. He's in the last stage and is currently on waitlist for a possible heart transplant. The problem is that he's sick most of the time. We had numerous visits to the hospital. He's currently on medication, but he's always struggling with doing activities and playing just like other kids. The cardiologist told me about a device called VAR that would help and improve my son's condition. I've looked into it, spoke to other parents of kids who have the same condition, and I decided to get my son this device, and I was told the sooner the better, so that my son could participate in activities and feel comfortable while breathing and limit hospital visits. I've been saving up money for this device, and I was planning on making an appointment with the private clinic staff to have his operation done this month. My wife is 4 months pregnant, and she's been asking when I was going to pay for a nursery room for our baby and complained that I was neglecting our baby and still haven't gotten anything for him. She started showing me different nurseries online that she thought were nice, and she went crazy about one of them that costs nearly $3,500. She insisted that I get it, but I told her that the money is for my son's operation. She said that this is my son as well. She criticized the doctor's recommendations and said that doctors are now advertising for many insufficient devices just to get money out of it, and brought up what happened with her deceased dad and how they took his money and didn't treat his condition. I told her to drop it, and she threw a fit, calling me stubborn. My wife made dinner for us and seemed quieter than usual, then she brought it up again. I told her to stop, but she went on about her expectations for me to be a good father to our unborn son and how I'm neglecting him already. I didn't even finish dinner, and before I went into the bedroom she told me that she already called the store and pre-ordered the nursery she liked, and that I should know because I will be paying for it. I lost it. I yelled at her for doing this after I already gave her my answer. I demanded she cancels the order, and she yelled back that I was being unfair and will be an awful dad who already failed once, and how sorry she feels for our son. She told me this in front of my son. We argued back and forth. She ended up going to her family, and she's been there for 2 days now. She mentioned that she won't return home until I decide to be fair to her and her son and stop disrespecting her. I haven't talked to her yet, and I feel like I'm being pressured, especially by her parents, who told me that I shouldn't treat her like that when she's taking care of me and my son. I'm a transplant nurse. I see VADs every day. Being on a VAD actually moves you up the list for a transplant because you're considered sicker if you need one. Do not spend this money on lavish nursery items. Your child needs this device to survive and will help him get a heart transplant sooner rather than later. Please don't do that to your child. Apart from this, your wife seems awful. How could she blame your lack of parenting for your son's congenital heart disease in front of him? If anyone spoke about my child like that in front of them, they would no longer be a part of my life. NTA, how can she compare a fancy but unnecessary nursery to giving your 9-year son quality of life? She can't even blame this in pregnancy hormones. It's absurd. There's no excuse for her behavior. She has been causing me so much stress and distracting me from important manners. She's being selfish and she's wrong if she thinks that I will give in to her unreasonable demands. NTA. It doesn't cost $3,500 to set up a crib in a room and call it a nursery. She mentioned her sister-in-law having an expensive nursery and how she thought that her sister-in-law isn't better than her, so she decided to go with a more expensive nursery to spite her. It's just so childish and ridiculous. This killed me. My oldest is almost 9 and I do not know what I would do if I were in your shoes. But, as I see it, you have a son who needs a medical device that will improve his quality of life. You have a baby on the way who, as far as you've told us, does not need any extraordinary medical interventions. You have a wife who is jealous of your relationship with your 9-year-old son and who, I am guessing, has no other children. You need to call the furniture store and cancel the order. You need to get your son the VAD. You need to explain to your wife in no uncertain terms that she's out of her damn mind, that she's the one being unfair to your son, and that as a parent, you do not play favorites with your children. This is an insane situation. Your son needs this device. The baby does not need $3,500 worth of nursery furniture. The baby doesn't care what the furniture looks like. However, his mother wants the best stuff. Look, all things being equal, you'd get the nice nursery set. But things are not equal. How on earth could you ever choose furniture over your son's heart? No joke. My heart breaks for you right now. At the end of the day, this is a problem you need to resolve with your wife, and I suspect that if she's this intractable right now, your marriage may have more rocks in the water than you realize. I sincerely hope her parents/family are telling her she's out of her mind right now, because she is. NTA. Good luck to you, and especially your boy. AITA for reporting my teacher for practically implying that I'm UNZ-14F. I've been going to school in person since August. I'm a high school freshman and one of my classes is world history. Yesterday, we started on the Holocaust. Before we started the unit, he explained to us that he is Jewish, and his great-grandpa was a victim of the Holocaust and that he might get a bit emotional while teaching. My teacher was explaining to us Nazi standards, and he decided to use me as an example. I am a very pale, blue-eyed, blonde girl, but I have Jewish ancestors. I am not Jewish because I am atheist, but it is still my blood and my family that had to suffer. Which I guess he didn't know. He looked at me and said, "Op, the Nazis would have loved you. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if you had Nazi blood in you." I was fucking appalled. I knew this teacher didn't like me, but he crossed the line when he compared me to a fucking Nazi. I'm not going to lie, I lost my shit. I got up and walked out the door and called my mom to pick me up. No, I am not supposed to just leave, but I did it anyway. I told my mom what happened and she called the school and raised hell. She is friends with the principal and he ensured her that he would either be reprimanded or released from his position. I think he's getting what he deserves. But my friend Mia, who actually really likes him, called me an overdramatic bitch and that I just ruined someone's livelihood, which made me feel really guilty. I forgot to mention the way he said it. He didn't say it like a teacher making a connection or something to explain better. He said it aggressively and was pretty snarky about it, which is one of the reasons I walked out. Update: I just got home from school. I only have 4 hours due to COVID, and he wasn't there. Principal said that he would be on probation. Don't know what that means for a teacher, and that he had to apologize. He refused, and quit that day. I don't know why he quit, he just did. Thanks for your kind words guys, smile, and a special thanks to AmItheAsshole available 18. who messaged me and said overdramatic bitch, but you get it from your mama, Nazi. I appreciate it.